Well, and that's a very big question that we're seeking to solve here. Plus, the associated matters of corrupt practices that might be happening, as is being revealed in this very latest piece. I want to bring in now Manasseh Azuriah, producer of this documentary, joining us via Zoom now. Manasseh, thank you for spending some time with us. Minority already jumping onto your latest revelation, asking that the contract be put on hold until a full parliamentary probe is done on this very matter. How are you receiving this, the call from the minority?
Well, I think it is very welcome news that the minority in Parliament is interested in this story and they are asking for the contract to be halted. I think this is the right thing to do, because if you let in on the details of this contract, you will wonder why certain human beings who have Ghana at heart would want to waste money this way. So I think it is in order that the contract be put on hold. And this is not a contract whose suspension is going to cost us anything, because as you'll see in that documentary, this company is doing practically nothing. The measurement it is taken are not used for revenue purposes. So we are not going to lose anything if this contract is suspended or terminated.
Yeah, and I just need to point out that ever since, the story broke, the ability for many to conceptualize this as to the impact, direct impact on, the growth of the country and how that affects the average Ghanaian is something many are unable to come to terms with now, probably because of the technicalities involved. We're talking about the petroleum sector. But in a nutshell, how are you able to tell the ordinary Ghanaian how this contract possibly might affect, the everyday average Ghanaian who's out there wondering what the possible impact might be?
Well, we are talking about a deal that will make us lose over 100 million US dollars every year. And 100 million US dollars is about 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. We know what this money can do. We know how the finance minister who is behind this contract is introducing taxes that some say are killing businesses. We know how pensioners had to go and then picket at the finance ministry because their life savings were affected. We know how children die from falling school buildings. We know how recently the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, the dialysis unit, had to close down because we are looking at a paltry 4 million cedis or so. This is not up to even $1 million. So if you are talking about all these monies going out, and mind you, this is just one deal in one ministry. If you'd want to aggregate such deals across all ministries, you would realize that Ghana perhaps may not need even to go to the IMF. Ghana may not need to be in the situation where bondholders would have to forfeit their investment. Ghanaian children should be able to have decent classrooms. And in this day and age, we shouldn't have people who are still struggling with animals to fight for drinking water. So when these monies are redirected towards public goods, people are affected. And if the money is wasted, it affects everybody, including you and me.
Very far-reaching consequences there in terms of what you're demonstrating to us. But then you talk about the finance minister. Where does he come in?
Well, we have evidence, at least for now, that the decision to expand the contract to cover the gold mining sector and the petroleum sector, that determination was made by the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta. There is a letter to that effect. We also know that the original contract to even do the downstream petroleum revenue assurance was jointly signed by the Ministry of Finance and the Ghana Revenue Authority. And the question everyone is asking is, why would anybody sign such a contract? This is a company that made very false claims about savings, and when it was confronted, this company couldn't say it actually saved money, and he had to admit that it didn't. And if you care to know, the finance minister, when commissioning the project, made a statement to the effect that the losses or the lapses in the system were causing losses. And he mentioned 2 to 3 billion cedis. 2 to 3 billion cedis. Not long after, 2 years after, this same company comes back to say they had saved 3 billion cedis. So you cannot take the finance minister out of a deal that he actually wrote to the GRA saying he had determined. And the question is, how did he come to that determination?
And that's why
the Petroleum Commission said.
And that's why I want to bring up the issue about being intentional, or the intent here at the time the finance minister was signing the agreement. Could there not be an after effect, say, per your revelation now and per what you're finding out now, the finance minister would then look back and say, oh, I was wrong, I did not know the facts this way, you're now helping us to understand what's happening. Is that a possibility?
Well, if it was any finance minister, I may want to say that, but this is a Yale-educated finance minister. This is a very intelligent man. This is someone who has built one of the most respected investment banks on our continent. So I want to credit him with a lot of intelligence, a lot of diligence, and want to believe that if he's put in a position to ensure that we get enough revenue from taxes and use those taxes well, we have the expectation that he would look at it well. When we got to this company, it didn't take us 5 minutes to begin to know that this company was actually not doing anything, providing value. The average person in the downstream petroleum sector knows that this company isn't doing anything. So if you sit in that office and then somebody comes to tell you they have saved 3 billion cedis, you would ask yourself, how much were we making from that sector? And if we would have lost this much but for your operations, then how much have we made more that you can make these bold proclamations? So I don't think that anybody in the value chain, because we spoke to quite a number of people, including some low-level staff and people who are close to the ministries, and they all tell you, look, this is a deal that is just to enrich this company and not give us any value. So I think whoever is behind this contract should have adequate knowledge of what goes on in the downstream sector and not subject Ghana to these kinds of outrageous...
I see. Well, I was asking the question because of possibly the kind of response we're getting now from the finance ministry. Did you attempt speaking to the minister? And what's now informing your way forward?
Well, I don't know what response we are getting now, but we actually wrote to the ministry using the right to information law, and we didn't get a response as of the time we're doing this story. We also wrote to the Ghana Revenue Authority in July this year and also in November asking for information. The junior staff and I think those who are not at the management level, they spoke to us in the course of the investigation. But when we needed questions specific about this contract, they asked that we speak to their superiors, and we could not get any response. So I think it is incumbent on all of us journalists who want to find out why anybody would sign that contract, especially when there is evidence that the company wasn't doing anything, even had to publish falsehood on its website that was checking diversion, dilution, and the under declaration. And when we had evidence that there were other companies doing this and not this SML, when we confronted them, management of that company told us in a meeting, well, we never said anywhere we are pursuing or we are doing those functions. And we said, it is on your website. They said, show it. We read it to them on their website. They said, oh no, these are not functions we do. And at the end of the day, by the end of the day, they deleted those ones from their website. I don't think this is a company that the Republic of Ghana should give a contract to that would cost us over $100 million every year.
Well, that's a very substantial amount, but Manasseh Asuri, thank you. Of course, this is just beginning to unfold, so we'll definitely be asking the questions that you're equally concerned about. But there's also more happening in Parliament on this matter, as the minority spokesperson on the Mines and Energy Committee, John Jinapor, is pushing for the immediate suspension of this deal pending a parliamentary program.
The government of Ghana, led by the Ministry of Finance and SML Limited, to undertake some so-called assurances, revenue assurance. And first of all, let me commend the fourth estate, Manasseh, and the media houses who conducted this investigation. Indeed, the minority has discussed this topical issue and will be moving processes in Parliament to ensure that there's full-scale investigation. Because we do not believe that there's value for money. This contract is a rip-off. This contract only ends up filling the pockets of greedy politicians and individuals, because just a couple of weeks ago, the Mines and Energy Committee visited NPA, and were made aware that they've put in place enough systems, enough mechanism, enough infrastructure to ensure that all the loopholes and all the losses are safeguarded, and that they've even hooked up with the Ghana Revenue Authority to ensure that all those assurances are catered for. And so the question is that why would you need this? Even more importantly, it's turned out that the so-called 3 billion savings was nothing but a hoax. We cannot allow the taxpayer to be burdened with such unnecessary contracts that only go a long way to fill the pockets of individuals. And so we would advise that immediately that contract is suspended, pending the parliamentary investigation. And when we go into it and we find out that indeed all those allegations are true, we would ensure that this contract is abrogated, because it doesn't serve the interests of this republic.
The House, because work on the controversial anti-gay bill will proceed despite the president signaling that he will not sign such private members' bill into law. The president has refused to sign some already pre-existing private members' bill sponsored by the Medina MP Francis Xavier Sosu to abolish the death penalty and also prescribe accusation of witchcraft, arguing that to impose a charge on the Consolidated Fund will have some sort of consequences on the executive, hence his decision not to, of course, sign onto the bill. The president hinted in his letter to Parliament on the private members' bill, which imposes a charge on the Consolidated Fund, that, of course, the fund will be entertained by his office. I just want us to listen to the Speaker of Parliament reading the President's letter before the House today.
Upon a thorough review of the relevant constitutional and legislative frameworks, specifically Article 108 of the Constitution and Section 100 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 921, it is evident that the bills introduced as private members' bills by the Honourable Member of Parliament for Medina constituency, Francis Xavier Sosu, do not conform with the provisions of the Constitution. These bills, which abolish the statutory death penalty and criminalize the activities of witch doctors or witch finders, entail substantial financial obligations on the Consolidated Fund and other public funds of Ghana due to the projected costs related to imprisonment, sustenance, and healthcare for those who will be convicted under the bills when they become law. Therefore, in light of this significant fiscal impact, these bills should not have been introduced without prior fiscal impact analysis, nor without my initiation or on my behalf. The absence of such an analysis precludes these bills from being properly classified as private members' bills. The legislative power entrusted to Parliament comes with the responsibility to ensure that all enacted laws comply with the constitutional provisions safeguarding the nation's fiscal integrity and upholding the principles of governance. Mr. Speaker, it is for the above reasons that I, in preserving the sanctity of the legislative process, refused to assent to the bills.
Asante is our parliamentary correspondent, joining us now with the latest on this. And for many who do not understand why the Speaker is vehemently disagreeing with the position of the President, just help us understand why the President is first of all making this argument premised on a certain constitutional provision. What's that?
Of the Constitution says no bill will be introduced to Parliament if it's a private member's bill which has an impact on the consolidated fund in the opinion of the person presiding. That is what the Constitution says. But the President is interpreting this to mean that private members cannot, as in ordinary members of Parliament, cannot introduce bills to the House that has a charge on the consolidated fund, and that such bills must emanate from the executive, from the President, or on his behalf. And so these three bills, crucial ones that the President says he has no problem with, he actually agrees with their content, passed by Parliament in July, has not been signed by the President because he believes they sin against the Constitution. And today, he has offered such a detailed explanation as to why he had decided to do so. But the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, is ferociously opposed to this reasoning. He says the President is tragically wrong and that in the coming days, he's actually coming to put out a statement detailing his opposition. Let's listen to the Speaker right after he read this letter detailing his opposition to the President's view on the Constitution.
I definitely, totally, vehemently disagree with the positions taken by the President. The President has got it tragically wrong. Tragically wrong. And I will submit in the form of a statement under Article 53 my position in this matter and allow members of the House to make comments so that we can take a clear position in this matter. And I will do so during the course of this week. The President has not been properly advised, and the President has not been properly informed of the processes these bills have gone through. So I will submit a detailed write-up on it for members to make their comments. But I'm very clear that this message and the contents are irregular, wrongful, and unconstitutional.
Beyond that, there's also a challenge ahead because we know that a lot of private member bills are before the House, including the controversial anti-LGBT bill.
Yes, the anti-gay bill also imposes the charge on the consolidated fund, literally, because it imposes custodial.
We seem to have a challenge connecting there to our parliamentary affairs correspondent, Kwaku Asante, who's been on the bit for us. But the minority leader in Parliament is also raising some challenges about this. Let's listen to his position.
I mean, to make any statement. You don't even know what I'm going to say.
Majority Leader, you are not a first-timer in this House.
I know.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not the first speaker.
Yes.
Please resume your seat.
Mr. Speaker,
Votes and proceedings of Saturday, 16th December 2023, page 1.
What is this preemptive strike?
Page 2.
The Speaker, the Majority Leader. What is this?
Page
that you are seeing
3.
in Ghana's Parliament? What is this that you are seeing in Ghana's Parliament?
Page 4.
What is this?
Page 5.
That's what unfolded between the majority leader and, of course, the Speaker of the House, giving the position that the Speaker has on the President's response on the, renunciation or perhaps the revocation of the death penalty bill, and also matters relating to the witchcraft accusation bill, all being sponsored by private members of the House. The Speaker will then issue his position on the matter going forward. But the Speaker also had this to say.
The bills that have been passed by Parliament, that is, those ones seeking to commute death sentences to life imprisonment, amounts to taking people who otherwise would have been summarily executed and then imprisoning them for life. There are monetary considerations. If you want to imprison somebody, he goes to the prison, he has to be fed, he has to be taken care of. If the person is sick, the state will have to take care of that person. And we are going to have to take money from the consolidated fund to do that. So the president was only saying to us that what we have done, we have done. In his considered opinion, he thinks that it infringes Article 108A, Roman number 2, and Roman number 3. This is all that the president has said to us. The Speaker says he disagrees with the president's opinion. That is legitimate. If the Speaker disagrees with him, it's legitimate. And he could have ended at that I disagree with the opinion given by the Speaker, by the President. And maybe I also come with my own understanding of the law. That is it. But you also saw and heard the rather visceral language of the Speaker. I thought it was most unfortunate. I thought it was most unfortunate for a Speaker, and I get up to be identified. I was just going to say that, well, I thought the communication is to the entire House. Well, the bill was passed by the House, not the Speaker.